Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well, feeling well out there, and having a great start to your Wednesday and a great week out there so far. Here to talk about the weather this morning, as we always do, and I certainly appreciate you folks who continue to tune in, even when things kind of start to slow down in the weather world, as I was already expecting, most was expected. Normally, when we get into the summer, things tend to slow down a bit. We don't have any huge events to really break down, just kind of minor to moderate events. But there's definitely some topics to really break down over the next several days. You know, Memorial Day weekend is a big outside weekend for a lot of people. And I really am watching this coastal low that really could plague the weekend for the Carolinas, especially weather-wise. We'll definitely break down some new information on that towards the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. We'll actually get a little detail for you guys. But for today, so severe weather is expected along the southern high plains again, and then we have some showers and storms expected that could go strong to severe in Florida. And then we'll talk about a cold front that is beginning at, well, it already is. It's kind of digging its way out of Canada, and we'll go through the Northeast, where temperatures might actually drop during a time of the day where they're supposed to be warming up in areas of the Northeast, and kind of reset the stage for another cooler pattern. I mean, guys, pools are definitely struggling to warm up here in the eastern U.S. For, late spring. I mean, I already consider late May around here in the Southeast summertime. I think, even though technically it's not summer, it already pretty much is for us in the South. We certainly consider late May pretty much summertime. But anyways, we'll break all that down for you guys. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. It goes a long way, especially in these slower times. It really does. Like the video if you do like it. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. Let's get rolling this morning. Water vapor loop troughing going on in the extreme western U.S. Mega block resetting up, so we got ridging all the way up into Canada. Weak flow in between this ridge, but you know, down here where you have a nudge and this upper ridge right here, and I tried to get my old pointer, my drawer over here working this morning. She just didn't want to work for me, so we're just going to have to do this. But you still got the flow along this little notch right here going like this. So you have, in general, still a northwest flow setting up over kind of the southern high plains area. And you see this big plume of white right here, higher water content in the atmosphere. So you got the leftover energy from last night still rolling and rumbling through Texas. And in fact, model initiation is struggling with this, and it's much more robust than what models are saying it should be. But you can really see this digging trough down here moving out of Canada. It's already starting to move into the northern Great Lakes region, like the UP of Michigan, and this will continue to dig into the Northeast. Will actually cool us down during the day, and along it you could have enough forcing for some storm development in the Northeast today. But definitely a big blocking pattern setting up. We'll certainly watch for some kind of low pressure to develop here in the next 48 hours over here off the coast of the Southeast. But you look at reflectivity and what's actually going on at the surface, you can see, and I'll show you here in a second. The model, the HRRR model, the NAM, is not initializing with this well at all, but you got a kind of a slowly weakening line of storms that's continuing to drift out the northwest to the southeast. Houston along the Texas coastline, certainly expect some showers and maybe even some storm action, over the next few hours in this region as this continues to move in the southeast direction. Over here in the southeast, still kind of the same rainy setup. You guys have experienced a good bit of rain, light to moderate, even at times heavy rain in Alabama over the last few days. And this is continuing this morning. Birmingham points south down to Montgomery, down over here to Tuscaloosa. Definitely experiencing some light to moderate rain this morning, just north of Jacksonville, in and around the Jacksonville area too, experiencing some showers and storms and just some general showers in central to southern Georgia. A little bit more clear in Texas, but here I go, calling Florida, Texas. A little bit more clear in Florida, but we expect that to definitely change as we get into the afternoon hours. Man, I cracked myself up with that. But waking up to some shower activity in the Outer Banks. But, the Northeast is pretty quiet this morning. But, I mean, look at this big band of showers and even some moderate to heavy rain. Even some snow showers behind this cold front where it's cold enough a little bit further north in Canada. But I would expect some showers and storms to develop storms to develop somewhere right in this region. We'll talk about this for you folks in the Northeast later this afternoon. So if you like, some storm action in the Northeast, you might get it. I don't expect this to be severe, really even strong and at all, but they could definitely, pack a punch wherever the most intense convection is, but definitely watch before this front moves in, as, you certainly could have some storm development. Storm Prediction Center, there's a slight risk of severe weather in this yellow area. That's a level 2 out of 5. And same risk criteria as yesterday, but this is a little bit further northwest, even into areas of northeast New Mexico, southern sections, and southeast sections of Colorado. Marginal risk does extend all the way up to Denver. And there is a question with this convection today, and this is really driven off the fact that, off our convection from overnight, this tends to really stabilize the atmosphere, and it just depends on how much the atmosphere recovers in this area today. So we'll certainly watch that, but there is a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. Hail risk, 15%, wind risk, there is a 15% risk of winds pushing 50 knots or higher. That's around 55 to 60 miles an hour. And a hail risk, there's no hatched risk today, but you have a 15% risk of hail pushing 1 inch in diameter or larger in this yellow area. And then you got a couple other areas to watch too. Marginal risk stretching from, northwest Utah, northeast Nevada, all the way through eastern sections of Idaho, northwest sections like Yellowstone National Park. You can have some strong to severe storms today in northwest Wyoming, and it goes right through the heart of Montana. So marginal risk of severe storms also, level 1 out of 5 down here in Florida. So let's talk about the Southeast first. One I want to note, the Carolinas up to Virginia, basically all the southern Appalachian Mountains here, it is very dry. This is not temperature, so it's not in the 40s, but these are dew points. Temperatures are very dry, so chances are, from Augusta points north, Atlanta points north, Columbia points north, you're waking up to a crisp air mass. It feels like that first fall cold front, that first late summer, early fall cold front of the year. It's just the summer that really can't get kick-started in this area. But I'm telling you, it's inevitable. It's going to warm up eventually. But they're already saying that this summer could be the coolest in 6 years, since 2017. I don't really remember how cool that summer was. But anyways, I know it was the summer after a pretty brutal summer in 2016, where we had like 15, 16 days in a row of over 100-degree temperatures in Columbia. That was pretty bad. I remember that summer well. My AC went out. But anyways, these are dew points. So, when you got dew points in the low 50s, the 40s, it's very crisp outside. Not a lick of humidity at all. So, pretty wild to see. But, it is still kind of late May. We're not deep into June. So you can still get these cold fronts, but they're beginning to become a lot more uncommon. More widespread look at what could happen today. Most of the weather today as we get into this afternoon is going to be right off the coast of the panhandle of Florida. But later this afternoon, I would say this happens maybe later in the afternoon, early evening time. You could definitely have some big boomers down here in kind of western and southwest of Florida. Some storms could make their way onshore here. And the panhandle of Florida, really anywhere. So we'll certainly watch out for this. We'll get a little bit closer look. Elsewhere, I'm not expecting an active day. I think the rain in Alabama and Georgia will kind of fade away later throughout the morning, but a closer look at what could happen today in Florida. And, you could be dealing with some showery kind of storm activity in certain areas of the coastline and panhandle of Florida all late morning and afternoon and evening. But I would say this becomes much more widespread and the peninsula of Florida later this afternoon to this evening. I think Miami and really up the entire eastern coastline could experience some big-time storms a little bit later this afternoon, and I think maybe some outflows pop out and extend westward, and this could reinitialize some storm activity in this region from Tampa Bay, maybe points east, southeast in this entire region. Orlando, Universal Studios, if you're vacationing down here in all these amusement parks, can't speak right this morning, definitely expect some late afternoon showers and storms down here. Basically, I would say from Gainesville point south has a pretty solid risk of some shower and storm activity. So, Watching this cold front in the northeast, this will continue to dive deep. I think this rain will enter the northern New York State area, Vermont, New Hampshire area, even Maine, as we get into the mid to late morning hours. But like I said, you see these colors right in here where they're more yellow, orange, and red. That's more intense convection. So there could be a line of storms that might get going right where, New Hampshire and Maine meet right here. Watch out for some storms in this region. There could be more storms than what this is showing down here into New York State, just looking at the HRRR model. And you could certainly see a stormy afternoon for southern New England, Massachusetts, Connecticut, eventually in the evening. If this isn't storm activity, it could certainly be some heavy rain. So don't let this catch you by surprise. A little bit of cooler, dry air aloft, kind of overcutting the atmosphere, if you will. So some of these could certainly produce some hail, very small hail in this region, but this will blast throughout the afternoon, the evening hours, and then cooler air comes in behind it. And speaking of that cooler air, check this out. Waking up to the 60s around the Finger Lakes region, might warm up all the way into the 70s. By the time you get to, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, cold front blasts through, and you go from the 70s to the 50s by the time it's dinner time, maybe even the 40s. So you see how these temperatures drop, rapid temperature increase. Oh, you might hit 80 degrees in, southern Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut. Cold front moves through, temperature drops 10 to 20 degrees in a matter of an hour or two. So pretty wild and sharp temperature drop today. I tell you what, it takes, and you guys could voice to this in the Northeast, it takes pretty deep into summer for you guys to fully get rid of these troughs that move through in the Northeast. You guys certainly can get these weaker cold fronts that kind of drops the humidity for you folks. But it could certainly get very humid up there also. But like I said, the HRRR model performing horribly with this convection in Texas. It's a lot more intense, but it's doing the best it can. So give it a round of applause for that, I guess. But you keep it going throughout the morning hours, the rest of this convection will dwindle away. Could get some storm development here in Oklahoma, especially northeast Oklahoma and kind of southeast Kansas. But these storms fire up here as a little piece of energy. Provides that kink and the ridge up top, and you'll have some storm activity around 5, 6 p.m. If you're wondering what time frame we're at, look right here and back it up an hour because we're in Central Time. And these storms will kind of move through, but this will be a tough one today. Trying to figure out what's going to happen today is tough, but I would say that if you're, along the Front Range into southeast Colorado, western Panhandle, the Panhandle of Oklahoma, and then northeast New Mexico into the Panhandle of Texas, strong to severe storms are probably possible to likely today. And another way to look at it, we can look at the long range HRRR models. Here comes that intense convection popping off. These could produce some large hail. It's just a different beast. These storms obtain hail a lot easier in Colorado, but this is around 6 to 7 p.m. late this afternoon to early this evening. Watch out for some big storms, and they could drift all the way throughout the eastern plains of Colorado. But I would watch just north and west of Amarillo. Some more intense storms can move through after the sun sets. So I would watch late evening, 10 p.m. to around midnight. Watch for an intense area of storms that kind of blast through the Panhandle of Oklahoma, Texas, maybe even southwest, southwest Kansas, southwest Kansas. Oh man, I just can't speak right this morning. But you keep this going throughout the wee hours of the morning, and watch these cells right here. Down near Lubbock. These looks like some intense cells around midnight to 2 a.m. in the morning, overnight to night. And a huge area of convection will continue to kind of push through out the northwest, the southeast, across Texas. And I think we'll wake up again tomorrow morning to a big area of convection right here in Texas. So will not be surprised at all. So please watch out for some intense storms in this region today for sure. The north central U.S., some showers will kind of get juiced up a little bit in the northern half of Minnesota, might drift into Wisconsin. Outside of that, pretty chill day, trough moving in will kind of stabilize the atmosphere. Not much moisture associated with this cold front at all. But I would watch these showers and storms that kind of drift into western Dakotas, western Nebraska throughout the late overnight hours. Unfortunately, my long-range HRRR model is not working, so we can look at the NAM actually. But we get into the overnight hours, still not a whole lot going on. Some of these shower and storm activity could drift into western Nebraska, western Dakotas, like I said. For my folks in the northern plains, I would expect some strong to severe storms again. We'll get into the morning. At this point, we're into around the 1 to 2 p.m. time frame. Widespread showers and storms pop up. A lot of these could produce some small hail. You have a lot of cold air aloft, higher elevation. Hail is easily obtained out here, even in some of these weaker storms. And you keep going, you get into about the 2 to 3, 4 p.m. time frame. Widespread showers and storms. Really anybody in Wyoming, almost anybody in Montana, especially the heart of Montana, right into here. And so some of these could produce some gusty winds, some small hail, so be aware of this. But these will kind of blast throughout the out the southwest in general to the northeast and move all through Montana. Some areas might not get a drop of rain. Some might get multiple rounds of showers and storms. Could be cold enough in some of these really high elevations in northwest Wyoming to see actually a little bit of this rain mixed with some snow. We continue, and this kind of dwindles away throughout the overnight hours. Move a little bit further southwest into the southwest U.S. And same kind of deal. You guys typically can get quite dry out here, but you take it all the way till about 3 to 4, 5 p.m. Widespread showers and maybe even some storm activity in the northern half of Nevada, especially I would say northeast Nevada. Some storms could be severe. Watch out the Salt Lake. You guys could get some storm activity. These could move into that into areas of I almost want to call this Wyoming, but areas into southern Idaho. Some storm activity in some of these valleys is certainly possible. Some of these could be some severe storm activity later as you get into the evening hours. So, marginal risk of severe storms. So, it's probably a little bit more unusual, not totally unusual, but hey, watch out for that today. Temperatures, you can see where this cold front is, right? And I stopped this in technically what's supposed to be the warmest part of the day. So it'll be warmer in some of these areas in the northern areas of the interior northeast this morning. But temperatures will drop behind this boundary. So these are, expected high temperatures for the warmest part of the day, I guess you would say. But this will not apply for some of these areas in the northern portion of the country where the cold front will move in and actually plummet the temperatures throughout the day. But down here it will. Still an area of clouds and rain that's keeping your temperatures a little cooler in areas of the deep south of Alabama and Mississippi. A nice day in the mid-Atlantic and areas of the Carolinas, Georgia. Lower humidity will make the upper 70s and 80s feel very comfortable. Beautiful weather. But the warmest part of the country of the eastern U.S. and central U.S. could be Illinois. Areas could get into the 90s. Of course, southwest Texas, will fight you for that. But, it's typically always very warm in this part of the country this time of the year. But very warm ahead of this cold front. And Illinois, you guys could certainly get into the 80s, even low 90s as possible. And just warm all the way through the Midwest and the northern plains, 80s. So the western U.S., Dakota is very warm. Eastern Montana, someone can hit 90 degrees a day. Very warm, very, very warm. Even warmer in the higher elevations too, where it's above average. I mean, some of these lower elevations in Idaho will try to hit 80 degrees a day. Very warm in Utah for today in these lower elevations. Basically, if you're in lower elevations, it'll get nice and not toasty, but it'll get pretty warm today, pretty comfortable. So enjoy the warm temperatures. Obviously, if you're in some of these microclimates where you're several thousand feet up in the air, it'll still be a little cooler. So tomorrow, another risk of severe weather. We'll see if this kind of upgrades to a slight risk in the coming updates. But kind of the same deal where you have a low-level flow of moisture up into the high plains that's providing enough juice, enough convective energy to the atmosphere for some strong to severe storms. This will continue for these same areas in this dark green where there's a level 1 out of 5 risk. And then for Friday, this extends all the way from the Texas-Mexico line all the way up to Montana. So this basically covers the entire high plains region. So if you're a storm chaser, I mean, pick and choose. What looks better to you, right? Montana or Texas or somewhere in between. But I would expect just isolated strong to severe storms anywhere in this entire corridor where you have a skinny little sector of moist air that's providing enough atmospheric ingredients for strong to severe storms in this region, with the desert kind of the desert air in this region providing just it helps in a way, but in another way it doesn't help. But there's enough cold air aloft to provide low level these lapse rates, which basically indicate how cool the temperatures drop the further you get up in the atmosphere. If they drop quickly, then you have better lapse rates, which means this provides more CAPE to the atmosphere. CAPE is that energy needed for these storms to really munch off of, fuel off of. So this is the case a lot when you're right up against these higher elevations of the western U.S. So we'll continue to watch this, but a big storyline coming up is this coastal low, and we'll start off for Thursday evening. You see the L down here, this is the low pressure. Look at all this heavy rain right off the coast. So getting to Friday morning, you got very heavy rain just off the coast of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. This low pressure will struggle to find a current to take, a directional flow to really move into. At the same time, you're going to have some kind of cutoff low over here that's going to kind of establish itself. This is going to eventually begin to pull this inland to the northwest. And as we're getting into, this is for Friday evening around 7, 8 p.m. Okay. Obviously, it's not exact science with the hour time frame, but just kind of a given time frame. That's what it is. We get into overnight Friday, this huge plume of rain from this low pressure, which the GFS has the idea of flirting around with a sub 1,000 millibar low pressure, has 1,001. Won't focus too much on the details on this yet, but this throws a big plume of moisture into the Carolinas, areas of eastern Georgia, and you'll wake up to start your Memorial Day weekend to an absolute doozy. Not just heavy rain, right? Potential for moderate to heavy rain, but gusty winds. I'm not talking about hurricane force winds, but just some gusty winds, especially along the coastal regions, and cooler temperatures. And I'll talk about that here in a second, why. But this moves through, makes a technical landfall. This will not be tropical. We won't expect a tropical storm. This will be a cold core setup, meaning the core of the storm is more cold air influence than warm air influence. The warm core is those tropical systems. But when you have a cutoff low and cooler air nearby, it really kills any kind of warm air influence on these storms, if that makes sense. But I mean, the entire Saturday, right? This is the entire Saturday. Bang, 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 bang. Completely ruined by this coastal low. It's slow moving too. It doesn't just move in and move out. And then we get into our Sunday, and we still got a lot of showers drifting around. And even into Memorial weekend. Actually Memorial Day. Coastal lows spinning all kind of showers, cooler air, and just some breezy conditions. Miserable day Memorial Day weekend is considered a big weekend for swimming and stuff like that. Outdoor activities, bad weekend for, I'm telling you. But we get into Friday, same kind of deal. The Euro has actually folded to the GFS somewhat and wants to plow this low pressure right into the Carolinas. It's a little bit later with it. Therefore, kind of extends more rainy conditions through Sunday and probably Monday, but same kind of deal. How much rain? Well, the blend of all models, we'll start this off for Thursday evening. Okay, this is Thursday evening. No, not much rain. A little bit of rain down here in the coast moving in, but we'll take it all the way through through next Tuesday morning. That covers the entire 3-day weekend, right? Look at this. Just miserable. Okay, that's the entire weekend, right? Slot. The entire weekend slot. I mean, it's like it bullseyes the Carolinas. This kind of reminds me of Ian a little bit on the last day of September last year, except it's not the same, not quite as intense, but it kind of reminds me of, with so much cooler air nearby, it certainly reminds me of it. But man, if you're from eastern Georgia to Virginia, it is not going to be a good Memorial Day weekend at all, I don't think, weather-wise. Of course, we'll make the best out of it we'll make the most out of it. But the Northeast was the big target for this, but not anymore. And that's because a cutoff low slipped away and will no longer pull this in place. But I'm telling you, if you're vacationing along the beach, I'm not trying to be negative, but the weather is not going to cooperate at all. Not only this, but this isn't going to be a tropical rain. There is so much dry air nearby, okay, with this cutoff low, that this will be a cold rain for May standards, for late May standards. So basically, with so much dry air nearby, this allows for temperatures to drop lower. It's called meeting a wet bulb temperature. So, this is around Friday for high temperatures off the GFS. And you notice, well, this looks kind of weird, Mitch, right? The eastern half of South Carolina's in the 50s, and then the upstate of South Carolina's in the 60s. Well, that is because this is rain-cooled air. So as rain moves in, it actually helps cool the temperatures, right? And with so much dry air around, because troughing in place, funneling in a lot of cold air, and cool, dry air, this allows temperatures to drop more. Okay, it's not like you got a tropical system moving in with dew points in the 70s. It's not the case. So you keep going. You get into Saturday morning. It wants temperatures to drop all the way almost into the upper 30s in some of these higher elevations of the North Carolina mountains. So you're waking up to the 40s in northeast Georgia. You're waking up to 40s in upstate South Carolina. Okay, but look at the high temperatures off the GFS for Saturday. With this rain-cooled air, absolutely miserable for Georgia, the western half of South Carolina, North Carolina, the southern Appalachian Mountains. High temperatures based off the GFS run. Okay, you keep this going. You even get into Sunday, and you're strong. This is odd. Look, Southeast Virginia, Northeast North Carolina, you're recovering. You're getting into the 80s. It's looking nice. But you still have this pocket of miserable weather into here. Okay, and then you get into Memorial Day. Everybody might start to recover somewhat, but there is a chance still for rain and cooler temperatures. So we'll continue to keep you guys updated, but I'm not liking the forecast for the weekend one bit. So that's all I got. God bless all y'all. Have a great day, and I'll be with you this evening.